स्मृतिपुराणम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि पादं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति भेदविभागिने अपर्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां ते गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। When we are looking at the first verse, so the verse goes like this. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannihito Kale, Nahi Rakshati Dukring Karane. So Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, worship the Almighty. The meaning of Govinda we saw the last session. It does not refer just to the Govinda that we normally know of, Lord Krishna. In fact, it refers to the Almighty Himself. So Lord Krishna we look upon as the. So worship that Almighty. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. So hey Mudhamate, one who does not have adequate intelligence. One meaning one who is not spending one's time properly. So that is indirectly what is meant by this address of one who is not intelligent. Hey Mudhamate, Govindam Bhaja. Why? Because Samprapte Sannihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati. Because when the time of death approaches, when the time to depart comes closer, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukran Karan. So your Dukran Karane is not going to be of much help. So Dukran Karane, so there are various ways in which it is understood. So one meaning, as I said, was it refers to studying grammar. So the story goes like this, that Shankaracharya saw a good man chanting this Dhatu Pata, the roots, trying to memorize some grammatical roots at a very advanced stage. So he must have been more than 70, 75. And then he is trying to repeat and commit some portion, some grammatical roots to memory. So some people say that your studying grammar at this age is not going to help. It doesn't mean that studying grammar is useless. But it means that at that age, you can't make much progress anyway. Because studying grammar takes a long time. So at that age, you might as well be spending your time more productively. So by spending your time in some kind of worship or prayer, and that is going to be more useful. That is going to give you better result. So that is one meaning that is attributed to this Dukkurin Karane. That may be true, but it is better we look at it. I mean, we understand it in a different way too. Because Dukkurin Karane, so it pertains to the root kru. Kru means to do in Sanskrit. So Dukkurin kru, to do. So some activity. So it is also taken as Shankaracharya advising this person that just living a life of meaningless activity is not going to be of any help, which applies to all of us anyway. Generally, we tend to think that if I keep myself busy, then I'm spending my life usefully, spending my time usefully. But that may not be necessarily true. What Shankaracharya says is that do perform activity that would be meaningful in some way, not just keeping busy meaningless. Because normally we tend to think that if I'm busy, we like to call ourselves very busy also. So whenever there is a social gathering, people generally talk about how busy they are and how they don't have any time for anything else. They are completely occupied, the days are completely packed. But then we don't step back to look into whether all the activity that I'm doing is useful activity, is meaningful activity. So here, Shankaracharya says that you don't waste your time being meaninglessly busy. As long as we are alive, there is no way we can avoid activity. So we have to keep doing something or the other. But an intelligent way to do it would be to analyze and examine each and every activity that I do, and then see how it is contributing towards my own spiritual progress. So he will talk about all the other various kinds of useless activity later in the subsequent verses. But here he is just setting up for what he's going to say later. So he says that you have to examine whether any activity that you are doing, what is the cost-benefit analysis? So look at the activity and then do a cost-benefit analysis. So how much of it is useful in terms of my own spiritual growth? So that is why he says, nahi nahi rakshati dukkurin karane. So meaninglessly running around, aimlessly running around is not going to help in any way. You will just pass your time. Time will just pass by. Years pass by. Days, years, they just pass by in an instant. Just now we thought we were out of school, and then suddenly we find ourselves 35. So then we think we have lot of time left, and again you find yourself, you are 50 or 55. So time just passes by without our even realizing it. So be aware of that. And then spend your life purposefully and in a very thoughtful way. So that is what he says by nahi nahi rakshati tukran karana. In other words, the first verse, it also tells us to have our priorities in life clear. What are your priorities? What is it that you hope to achieve in this lifetime? Because we find that whatever we have done so far, very little is retained by us. So if we look at our own life, in all these years, if we examine what we have spent our time on, then we find very little is retained by us. And what Shankaracharya is trying to say is that the only thing that is retained, that we carry along with us, is our own spiritual growth and progress. Nothing else is retained. Money is not retained. People also come and go. Our accomplishments also are temporary. Everything is temporary. We'll talk about all of this in detail. Everything is temporary. But what we really retain without losing it is only my own spiritual progress. Because whatever knowledge I have gained, whatever wisdom I have gained, that only sticks with me. Everything else is volatile. Here by wisdom, I don't mean by all relative knowledge that I have. So knowledge that I require for survival. That is all relative knowledge. That also is short-lived. It has a shelf life. So whatever I know, I become obsolete in due course after time. And the only thing that is retained by me, which I hold on, whatever happens to my life, is the knowledge that I have gained in terms of my spiritual. That is the only thing I retain. Nothing else I retain. I mean, you can really think about it and then see. Everything else passes. Nothing else stays. So whatever you have done for your family, whatever you have done in your career, whatever you have done anywhere, whatever you have accomplished, that is all past and gone. But my wisdom that I retain. So that is what Shankaracharya is trying to also indicate. That a life of meaningless activity, aimless wandering, aimless life, that is not going to help you. That's what he says in the first verse. So with this, we will move on to the next verse. Verse number 2. Dhajahi Agamatrishna Sadbuddhim Manasi Vitrishna Yallabhase Nija Karmo Tam तन्तेन विनोदय चित्तम् च गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दम् गोविन्दं भज मूढमते. So here he talks about a certain activity that we spend a lot of our time on. So again, he starts by addressing this person as a moodha. That means one who is dull-witted. So one who is not intelligent. So earlier verse also he said moodha mate. Here also he is starting like that. Moodha jahihi dhana agama trishnam. So give up your obsessive craving for wealth. So dhana agama. Trishna means craving. Craving bordering on obsession. So jahi. So give up. That means it's a waste of time. Moodha jahihi dhanagama trishnam. So don't waste your time chasing wealth. What he is also trying to point out is that it is we spend a disproportionate amount of time on accumulating wealth. If we look into how much time we are spending for the sake of money, Shankaracharya's opinion is that we spend a disproportionate amount of time in wealth accumulation, on wealth creation. So give up your obsession for wealth. Even when we look at ourselves normally, when we examine how much I really need for living a reasonably comfortable, a life where I would not suffer for want of anything, then I find that I need very little. I don't require too much. But we just keep on adding requirements to what we need. What will happen? What will happen if there is no one to care for me later? If I end up with no money at a later point in my life, or if I have a very big health issue for which I have to spend huge money. So I try to imagine dire situations. So which are mostly just in the realm of my imagination. And usually I don't have such requirements. So I may end up without any health issue. I may be healthy. But then later I will find that I have wasted a lot of time in just saving up for a later day. So which was never required in the first place. So there are, there are two issues here. One is I waste my time, and the other is I have also not spent my time doing what I'm supposed to do. And regretting later is going to be of no help anyway. That is why Shankaracharya says, Mudha Jahihi Dhanagama Trishna. So don't spend a disproportionate amount of time on making money. And don't regret later. At 60, 65, 70, don't regret. I could have spent my time more useful. There is no point. Because what you could have done in your 20s, 30s, 40s, if you have not done, it's very difficult to make up at the end of one's life. Because spiritual growth is a continuous process. It's a lifelong pursuit. So unlike what many people in India tend to think also, and elsewhere also, not just India. Elsewhere too, people tend to think that spirituality is to be postponed for after retirement. So postponed for after I become good for nothing. So retirement means I become good for nothing else. So I turn to spirituality. So Shankaracharya says that is not how it is to be looked at. So Mudha Jahihi Dhanagama Krishna. And also he's also referring to what is said in the Upanishads. So in the Kathopanishad. So there is one, the advice or the teaching is given by Lord Yama, the Lord of Death, to a young boy called Nachiketas. So Lord Yama thinks that this boy is too young for spiritual. So he tries to lure him by offering him a lot of wealth and all enticements. But Nachiketa wants nothing of that. So when he tries to lure him with wealth, says, I'll give you all the wealth in this world. The whole earth is yours. And you can enjoy. Then Nachiketa says that no one ever becomes or ever becomes happy, ever gets absolute joy by wealth. So wealth can never buy happiness. Wealth can buy a lot of things, but wealth can never buy happiness. And the Vedas also say, na karmana na prajaya dhanena tyage naike amritatvam mahanash. So one does not gain immortality either by activity or by progeny or by wealth. Na karmana, na prajaya, na dhanena. So it is very clear that wealth can never give me what I'm really seeking. And then the question is, why are you obsessed? Why are you wasting so much time chasing wealth and money? It doesn't mean that I don't require money at all. But this excessive value that one has for money, that has to be given. That is a primary requirement. Because, as I said in the last class also, that Bhaja Govindam is a text that is studied in the beginning, so that one is clear about what kind of mindset I should cultivate for gaining spiritual knowledge. So if I have an excessive value for wealth, then obviously I will not have any interest, and I will not be focused on self-knowledge. So Shankaracharya is trying to point out that excessive value for wealth is a big obstacle for one's own spiritual progress. So Mudha Jahihi Dhanagama Krishna. So give up your obsession or excessive value for wealth. Have what you need. Yes, we do need. Have what you need, but not keep on hoarding yourself with wealth possessions. Guru Sadbuddhim Manasi Vitrishna. And then Guru Sadbuddhi means entertain. Entertain as much as possible thoughts of the reality of oneself. So inquire into who I am. That is what is meant by Guru Sadbuddhi. Spend your time on this inquiry. Manasi. With complete focus. So Manasi in the mind. Don't let the mind be clouded with all materialistic thoughts. Guru Sadbuddhim Manasi Vitrishnam. Vitrishnam means giving up all kinds of craving, all kinds of obsession. So earlier he said Dhanagama Trishna. Here he is saying Vitrishna. It means the same thing. Trishna means craving. Dhanagama Trishna, excessive craving for wealth. Vitrishna, all kinds of craving. All kinds of obsessions. Guru Sadbuddhim. And contemplate. Spend your time more and more on contemplation. Because that is the only thing that you are going to carry with you. In this lifetime and later also. So that is why the Bhagavad Gita also says, if someone has a lot of interest in spirituality, it is because of whatever effort I have put in terms of pursuing this path at an earlier lifetime. So that means this is the only thing that I carry with me. So all the wealth that I have earned, I have to leave behind and go. Relationships also have to be left behind. Power has to be left behind. All accomplishments have to be left behind. All relative knowledge also has to be left behind. So spiritual knowledge alone you carry along with you. So that is why he says Guru Sadbuddhim. Spend more and more time on inquiry and contemplation. Guru Sadbuddhim Manasi, in your mind, because thoughts happen only in the mind. Manasi Vitrishna, by being undisturbed by all kinds of cravings. And then he says how to do it. Yat yallabhase nija karmopatam vittam tena vinodaya chit. So whatever you get by doing some work, yat labhase nija karmopatam. Be satisfied with that. So don't always keep complaining. Because some people have this tendency to keep complaining. I do so much work, but I I don't get properly compensated for what I do. I don't get adequately compensated. It doesn't mean that you should not get what you deserve. But what he says is that if you are getting enough, reasonably good money, then just be satisfied with that. So yat labhase nija karmopatam vittam tena vinodaya chittam. So with that, just be contented. So contentment is a very important requirement. Because that is a very rare commodity. Contentment is a rare commodity. So if we ask any human being, are you completely contented with what you have? Even though a person initially sometimes may say, mostly we won't get that answer that I'm contented. So even if a person says that I'm contented, then what you should do is just keep the conversation going for some time. Then slowly the discontentments will start coming up. No, this could be better. So I could get a little more money. So I could be a little more comfortable. So all discontentments start coming up. But Shankaracharya advises that contentment is a basic requirement. So you do require money, and you do need to work, and just be happy with whatever you get. Don't keep craving for more. So sometimes people say, if I have so much money, then I will be the happiest person. Once the person happens to make that much money, you go and talk to the person. So then what you will find is that the goalpost would have shifted. So I said that at that time, but now I require this. So he asked the person why. Then you will get a long justification also. Why I require money, why my commitments are more, and then why I really need it. So that is what happens to people. So that's why here Shankaracharya says, don't shift your goalpost. So you have certain amount of money, learn to stop. Sometimes I ask some of my friends, cannot ask this to everyone. Because if you know a person for a long time, so then you can ask. So this, when you know that this person has been earning well, so both husband and wife, They've been earning very well for many years, and they're quite wealthy. And then when they are 45 or 50, so if you ask them why you have a lot of money which can with which you can live happily for the rest of your life. So why do you still continue to keep running crazily like this? Then usually the answer you get is, what else will I do? So I don't know anything else, so I just keep working. I think it's very sad for a person to say that. So that is how we are. So you just keep on making money without really any particular need for it, and aimlessly living a hectic life. So that's why he says, be contented. So learn to be content. Inquire into how much I really need, and then focus on what is really more important. यदि लभसे निज कर्मोपातम वित्तम तेन विनोदय चित्त. So cultivate the mindset of contentment. And Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. And spend the rest of your time in contemplation and inquiry. So these are all basic guidelines that we get from Shankaracharya as to how ideally one should structure one's life. So what I should be doing and what I should be avoiding. And what responsibilities I should take and what responsibilities I should not take upon myself, take on myself. So that is what is clearly pointed out in its verses. So there is also one story from the Upanishads. So this is from the Brihadaranyaka. So the hero of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is a very wise man called Yajnavalkya. So a lot of discussions revolve around him. So in the second chapter of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, so Yajnavalkya, he decides to take sannyasa. So it seems Yajnavalkya was a very happily married person. He had not one but two wives. So Maitreyi and Katyayani. So in those days, having two wives was allowed. Today in India, it is an offense to have two wives. Some politicians still have, but still it is not legally permitted. So, but in the India of those days, it was allowed, and the Upanishad also indirectly tells us that he kept both of his wives happy. So they were not complaining. So why are you having two? So why should I not be given why should one not be enough? So, but anyway, He was a very wise man. And everyone knew that. And he was also very wealthy. In fact, the king of those times, King Janaka, he used to give him a lot of wealth for his wisdom, for his knowledge. In those days, these wise men were given wealth by the kings. And these people did not use all the wealth to live a lavish, extravagant life. But the wealth was given to these people so that the knowledge is passed down, so that they have a structure, infrastructure. They develop an infrastructure to help preserve this knowledge. That is why the wealth was given by kings. Today we have to ask for donations. So to pass on this knowledge. But in those days, the kings felt it was their responsibility to support it. So that is why Yajnavalkya also had a lot of wealth. And he was going to take sannyasa. He wanted to take sannyasa. Why? Because he wanted to spend more time on contemplation. So even if you have one wife, it is difficult. If you have a family, it is difficult because you have too many responsibilities. If you have two, then the responsibilities are also double. So you don't have time. So he wanted to take up sannyas. And the rule is that any married person, if the person wants to renounce, then whether it is one wife or more than one wife, he should get permission from all the wives. Only then he can renounce. He cannot just run away one day. So sannyasa means not just disappearing one day, just vanishing. So you have to make your wife happily consent to your renunciation. So he went to one wife, Katyayani. And then he said that I will give you half my wealth. And that wife was satisfied. She said, okay, if this is what you want to do, just go. And then he went to the other wife. He said the same thing, one half I've given her, one half I will give you, which is a lot anyway. So please allow me to renounce. So then the question that this Maitreyi, she was more intelligent apparently than the other wife. The question that she asked him was, will I get what you are leaving all this for with wealth? So you are leaving me with wealth, but you are going for something else because wealth is not giving you what you really want. So with the wealth that you leave behind, will I get the same happiness, same satisfaction, same fulfillment that you are renouncing all this? So it was a very, very good question, naturally. Because if I will get with wealth, then why are you quitting in the first place? You also stay with me and let us both enjoy the wealth and still go all the way. So gain the purpose of one's life. If you are not going to get with wealth, then why are you trying to cheat me? So leave all the wealth to me. And then you are going for something else because wealth is not going to buy happiness. So Yajnavalkya, he doesn't say that no, you will get that, then just run away from there. So slime out of that. Says, yes, you will not get what I'm trying to get, you will not get with wealth. So then Maitreyi tells him, then you also teach me. Teach me about what will give me real joy. And then you go. Until then, I'm not letting you go. So until you teach me, I'm not letting you go. So then he teaches her. So that teaching is that in one, I mean, briefly, if you want to say. So there is one statement that he makes, Atmanastu Kamaya Sarvam Priyam. Only for the sake of oneself is everything dear to anyone. So wealth is dear to you because you are dearer for the sake of oneself. Husband is dear to you only for the sake of oneself. Wife is dear to the husband only for the sake of the husband, not for the sake of the wife. Likewise, one son or daughter or anything in the world for that matter. Anything is dear to me only for the sake of myself. So what is the reality of that self? That is what he teaches in that section. It's called the Maitreyi Brahma, the second chapter of the Brihadaranyaka. So there are enough references in the Upanishads which very clearly say that spending a disproportionate amount of wealth, time on wealth is a complete waste. So do spend your life purposefully. Spend your life meaningfully in more useful activity. So this is what is conveying in this verse. Then we'll move on to the next verse. In the next verse, he is pointing out another obsession that human beings normally have. So primarily, obsession or excessive value for wealth. And in the next verse, he is going to talk about obsession for the opposite sex. That is the next obsession he is going to talk about. So there was one great saint, one of the greatest saints of the recent centuries. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He was from Kolkata in India. So he was illiterate, a textbook definition of illiterate. But then he became one of the greatest saints that we know of. So the guru of Swami Vivekananda. So Ramakrishna always used to point out two main issues with the human being, or two main problems or obsessions of it. Kamini Kanchana, is to say always Kamini Kanchana. Kamini means opposite sex. Kanchana of wealth. So human beings waste their time primarily on these two obsessions. Either on wealth or on the opposite sex. So Kamini means women. So it need not be only for a man, because it can be both ways. For a man, it's a woman. For a woman, it's a man. So obsession is from both sides, as long as you are a human being. So in the second verse, Shankaracharya also, he talks about the obsession for wealth. And in the third verse, he talks about the drawbacks of obsession for women. So we'll read the third verse. Amristanaڀरनाभिवेशम् दृष्ट्वा मादामोहावेशम् एतन्मांसवसादिविकारम् मनसि विचिन्तय वारं वारम् भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दम् गोविन्दं भज मूढमते. So what he says is Nari Stana Bhara Nabhi Deshana. So he talks about what are the obsessions a man could have in terms of desire for a woman. The different parts of a woman's Nari Stana Bhara Nabhi Deshana. Drishva Maga Moha Veshan. So seeing this, don't fall a prey to that attraction. So again, this attraction for the opposite sex. It is very natural to all life forms. No one is saying, or no one is trying to be judgmental about that. But what is being pointed out in this verse is that try to grow out of it. Generally, what we don't do is that not deliberately try to grow out of that compulsion. So what he's saying here is that you need to really inquire into what is that desire and create a healthy aversion for that desire. So Vairagya here means a healthy aversion for this attraction. Healthy, I'm saying, because this desire itself is a lot of waste of one's time, one's precious time. So trying to fulfill this desire. So what all you have to do to satisfy the other person so that you can enjoy. The Shastra never says that there is no pleasure in it. But the Shastra says that trying to grow out of that compulsive need. So in your youth, in one's youth, it is okay. But if it continues even after you become older, then there is a problem. It is a problem. So that is why one can legitimately try to fulfill that desire and then slowly grow out of it. And again, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, one of, again, the same saint, he also used to say that once a husband and wife have one or two children, a few years after marriage, then both should live like a brother and sister. So that is what he used to say. So slowly grow out of that compulsion. And when you grow out of that, then over a period of time, you will also not have that addiction anymore. Compulsion anymore. It is the basic urge might be there, but you can distract your mind, turn it on to something else. And this is a continuous process which one has to work on. If one does not deliberately do that, then one will never grow out of it because it has to be consciously done. That's what he says. Nabhi stanabhara nabhi desham. So looking at the woman's body. Anytime one looks at the woman's body, then immediately one should not get that uncontrollable urge. So when one grows older, then it reduces definitely. But many times it is because that you are too old that you cannot do anything. So it should not reduce like that. So it should reduce because you have grown out of that. Give an example. Like even giving up any other desire like sugar. So in the beginning, there is some craving. But over a period of time, when you understand that it is not good for your own health, then the craving also reduces. So here also, Shankaracharya advises that this craving also has to be grown out of. We are not denying it. No one is denying it. In fact, denying or suppression is not what we mean. Because people generally try to give it that kind of color. So that means suppression, then it will lead to psychological problems. So that is not what we are saying. Here we are talking about naturally growing out of that need, that compulsion. Drishtva maga moha vesha. Don't fall a prey to that illusory attraction. So moha vesha, moha avesha, or to that compulsive illusory attraction. Etan mamsa vasadi vikara. So just try to inquire and then think about it as a desire for something that is inherently filthy. He is also teaching how to overcome that desire. Because if it is a desire for another person's body is full of sweat and flesh. So it is inherently filthy. When you inquire into that, then you start asking yourself, what am I really attracted to? Something that's filthy I'm attracted to? He's asking you to inquire on those lines, think on those lines and give up this. Manasi vichintaya param. Again and again contemplate on these lines and then give up this compulsive obsession. So two obsessions we have seen so far. One is obsession for wealth and the other is obsession for the opposite sex. Nowadays, if the person is gay, then you have to include same sex also. So it can be understood as obsession for some other body. So that is what we understand. So we'll stop here and continue. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Dachyate Purnasya Purnam पूर्णमदः पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरु हरि ओम।